Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I'm Zdenek Hanzalek, and this is the 17th installment of the scheduling seminar. I have to thank to Dvir Shabtay that have taken this opportunity because Christian Artik got some COVID issues, and Dvir was able to bring his topic and to prepare the slides in such a short time. So now please let ask me Mike Pinedo to introduce the speaker.
Let me introduce Dvir. Many of you already know him. He is actually, he has in scheduling, he has two areas of expertise. One of them, if you want to know anything about scheduling with rejections, you should send him an email because he knows everything about scheduling with rejections. His second topic is a topic he's going to talk about today, fixed parameter tractability. And because it's a relatively new topic, it should be of interest for anybody who wants to find a new research direction. Okay, Dvir, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mike, and thank you for inviting me. Thank you for the opportunity to present our work. It's a work of a team for such a audience of the best, I don't know, people in scheduling. I have thanks to say for several people, but I will do it at the end, so they will not zoom out too early. Okay, so thank you very much. The topic is on parameterized tractability of machine scheduling problem. And I will present first the topic of parameterized complexity and its connections to scheduling, provide the motivation, and then I will present some work that we did. So parameterized complexity is a branch of the classical computational complexity theory developed in the 90s by the computer science community, specifically by two persons that I will present later. And it deals with the tractability of NP-hard problems with respect to their natural parameters. It means that it deals with the question whether NP-hard problems become tractable when a subset of their parameters are of a limited size. I will formally define what it means. But to provide the motivation, especially in scheduling area, so I found this very natural and classical problem to be a very good way to present the motivation. So consider the total tardiness problem on a single machine. Most of us know it, or all of us. We have n jobs. For each job, we have a processing time and a due date. This is the instance, and the objective is to find a job permutation that minimizes the total tardiness, where tardiness of a job is the maximum between 0 and its lateness, which is the difference between the completion time and due date. Okay, so this problem was open for a long time, the complexity, but in the early 90s, or exactly 90, it was proven to be NP-hard in the literature. The pseudo-polynomial time algorithm, if I clearly remember, was available earlier even. So the problem is NP-hard in general. However, in many real-life applications, you may think of instances where either one of the following parameter is bounded, the value of the parameter is bounded. For example, the number of different processing time in the instance may be bounded, or the number of different due dates may be bounded. You may have a single due date or several due dates, but not too much. What happens then? Okay, so those are very natural parameters. For example, the number of different processing time, VP, may be bounded in cases where we produced only a small amount of different products in the shop. So in such cases, which not rare. They are very common. We may have instances with only a small amount of different processing times, and the number of due dates in the instance may be bounded in instances where the shipping cost is very high, and therefore we assign only few different due dates for jobs. So what happens if those parameters are of a small size? We all know probably that when VP equal 1, i.e. the equal processing time case is solvable in order n log n time by using the EDD rule, and alternatively, if all due dates are equal, i.e. VD equal 1, again, SPT rule is optimal and the problem becomes polynomial. If it's polynomial when VP equals 1, it is natural to ask what happens if VP is greater than 1, but still is bounded by a constant. Okay? Similarly, the same question arises when looking at the other parameter VD. Okay? So a natural question, can we solve the total tardiness on a single machine in polynomial time when the value of VP or VD is upper bounded by a constant, more than 1? So the answer is quite easily is yes. I haven't found it in the literature, but it's not that difficult to design a DP algorithm that solves this problem in order n to the k time, where k is either one of the two parameters. It exploits simple properties, dominance properties of the schedule, and it's not easy to obtain that. So this is good news. The problem is tractable, at least by the terms of classical complexity language. It's polynomial solvable when the value of those, either one of those two parameters is bounded by a constant. Okay, but in parameterized complexity, we look even to a better algorithms. We ask the question, can we make the exponent of n independent of k, which forms a much more efficient algorithms? For example, 2 to the order of k or order k multiplied by n to the cubic, or more generally, a function of k multiplied by n to the order of 1, which asymptotically speaking, we can prove that it's much better than order n to the k, although they are both polynomial when k is bounded by a constant. Okay, so it's defined a new, let's say, battle between good and bad algorithms. If in classical complexity theory, we say that a good algorithm is polynomial in the instance size, and a bad algorithm is exponential in the instance size, in parameterized complexity, we deal with, usually, we take NP-hard problems, and we try to measure the complexity not only in terms of the instance size, like in classical scheduling, but in terms of the instance size and an additional parameter, which we believe that it's natural to assume that it is bounded in instances. So in parameterized complexity, we classify the complexity of an algorithm by two terms, okay? The first, I will try to draw a bit. Maybe the first is K, which is the parameter itself, and N, which is the instance size. And a good algorithm is one that runs in FPT time, okay, which is called the fixed parameterized tractable algorithm. And it separates the two terms, the terms that relates to the parameter and the terms that relate to the instance size. On the other hand, less, I would not say bad, because it's still polynomial when k is upper bounded by a constant, but less good, I will say, I don't know. A bad algorithm in terms of parameterized complexity is one that it calls an XP algorithm, which runs in order n to the power of f to the k, where f to the k it's a function of k, it's a computable function of k. I will say that even worse than that are algorithms that are not capable of solving the problem in polynomial time when k is bounded by a constant, which you may have a problems which you cannot solve neither in this time nor in this time. Okay. So just to make sure that we are okay, that it's clearly understand. So I plot here, or Danny, my colleague, I took his slide, plot here a function, two functions, one which is a parameterized function of k, the green one, and the other one which is an XP function of n and k, okay, where k equal to 2, okay? And you see that the green function, the FPT function, the computational time where k is constant grows much smoothly than the XP algorithm. In fact, I will define the two sets of problems formally, and I will say something about the relation, more accurate about the relation of the two. Okay, so let's go to more formal definitions. I will not go deep into the parameterized complexity theory, just terms, definitions that we need to this talk. So we say that the problem pi belongs to the FPT set, or that it is fixed parameterized tractable with respect to parameter k, if there exists an algorithm that solves any instance of pi in, in fk n to the order 1 time, okay? This is, okay, so a problem belongs to the FPT set if it has, with respect to a specific parameter k, if it runs in this time. By the way, the total tardiness, okay, just a moment. The second definition is problem pi belongs to the XP set with respect to parameter k if there exists an algorithm that solves any instance of pi in this time, okay? Okay. So there is an inclusion relation between the two sets, i.e. the FPT set of problems is included in the XP set, and therefore a problem may not have an FPT algorithm, but have an XP algorithm. Okay. So those are, even XP can be counted as a good news about an NPR problem, but definitely FPT algorithm, which is better. How can we prove hardness result? How can we provide hardness result in parameterized complexity? The first thing is the strongest hardness result is when the problem is NP-hard in the classical way for a constant value of k. So for example, the total weighted number of jobs problem is NP-hard even for the case of equal due date. So if the parameter is the number of different due dates in the instance, the problem is already NP-hard for a constant value of the parameter. And it means that unless P equal NP, it cannot be solved in XP time with respect to K. Obviously, it cannot be solved in FPT time in that case, because of the inclusion relation between the sets. Okay. Okay, this is the first or the strongest hardness result. If we prove that the problem is NP-hard even for a constant value of K, it means that unless P equal NP, it excludes the existence of both an FPT and an XP algorithms, or an XP algorithm, okay. Sometimes we have an XP algorithm and we want to know if we can push it further to an FPT algorithm. So there is another hardness result that rules out under common assumptions the existence of an FPT algorithm. We say that the decision problem pi is wi hard with respect to a parameter k. If pi being FPT with respect to k, it means that all this set of problems is as FPT as well, with which is very unlikely to assume. Okay, it's very similar to the classical computational complexity theory. By the way, a problem may have an XP or an FPT algorithm with respect to a specific parameter, but with respect to another parameter, it may be hard to do so. Okay, to prove that the problem is wi hard, we can provide a parameterized reduction from a known wi hard problem. It's similar to traditional complexity reductions, but with a slight difference that the reduction time can be done in an FPT time rather than in polynomial time. So we can provide a parameterized reduction. That's why we say a parameterized reduction from a well-known wi hard problem, where the example that I want to include is for a problem, a well-known problem in W1 hard set of problems is the k-sum problem. Why I want to present it? Because it may help to classify the parameterized complexity of a large set of scheduling problems. So usually the problems in the set usually are graph theory problems where they don't have parameters and we have parameters in the instance. So this is a good problem to work with in scheduling. So the k-sum problem is as follows. We are given a set of n integers, and we ask if there is exactly a subset of exactly k elements of this set of n integers that adds up to a specific target, let's say k. Okay? Note that the k-sum problem has a simple XP algorithm. Why it has a simple XP algorithm? Just enumerate all subsets of size k. You have n to the k such subsets, which is order n to the power of k. So simple enumeration algorithm provides an XP algorithm. However, this problem is known to be W1 hard. It means that unless something dramatically happens, it rules out the existence of an FPT algorithm. So if we want to prove that the scheduling problem is W1 hard, may use it and provide a parameterized reduction from the k-sum problem. Okay, I hope this is the basic concept. Okay, so now a bit of history about this theory. It was developed in the 80s. I found several different websites. Some say early 80s, some say late 80s. I even said, find somewhere that it says 80s, but probably this is a mistake, by Rudney Donway and Michael Fellows. I do hope there will be a lot of names which I usually do mistakes when I pronounce them. So I do hope that I will pronounce most of them correctly. More than 50%. So those are the two, and they really influence a lot the algorithmic community, computer science. This is the book that they wrote about parameterized complexity. And ever since, it is well-established area with hundreds of articles published every year in the most prestigious theoretical computer science journal and conferences. Many of them is in graph theory, but I don't know, strangely or not strangely, the area of scheduling was almost neglected up to 2015, which is quite of weird because it's an area of combinatorial optimization, and it's very natural to think about the combination of, if we all do or ask theoretical complexity questions in scheduling problems, why not to ask parameterized complexity, given that it's well-established theory with hundreds of papers in many areas. Okay, so papers that I found from the 90 up to 2015 were only two that deals with the parameterized tractability of scheduling problems. The first was published in 1995, and it provides a hardness result. And mind the gap between the papers and the second one 8 years later in 2003, Theoretical Computer Science journal. It wasn't that strange to me to find that people, the two papers analyze scheduling problems with precedence constraint relation, and usually the parameters relate to the structure of the graph and not to the parameter that I present earlier, which is the parameters that relate to the processing time and due date, because those are the best algorithmic guys, fellows, and they used to work on graph theory mostly, I believe, and it's very natural to them to take scheduling problems with precedence constraints and to analyze their complexity. So the first 1995, 2003, at that time period, hundreds of papers on parameterized complexity in other combinatorial fields, combinatorial optimization fields. Since 2015, there is an increasing number of papers in this topic. I found maybe something like 20, but I think it will rise as it was in graph theory. It will blossom very soon. I hope so. There are two groups. The first one, I think that with the first paper in 95, I have to pronounce the names, and I said I will probably do mistakes, include Matthias Mink, René van Beveren, Rolf Niedermeyer, Matthias Weller, Andres Weiss, and Andre Suchi. And those are the people. This is the first group. There are several papers on scheduling with parameterized complexity. I think the most cited one or the most famous one is the first one from 2015, scheduling meets fixed parameter tractability. Although you see it meets it earlier, but this is a very seminal paper with different parameters on natural parameters of scheduling and not related to the precedence constraint, I think. Classical problems like in parallel machines, make-span problem, problems with rejection, mathematical programming. There are a few other papers, including in Journal of Schedulings and Computer and OR. I highlight the last one because what really interesting us is what we will do next after we will finish this talk. Maybe see a football match, but then we need to do some work. This paper lists 15. There are a huge number of open. This is a new field with hundreds of open problems, but it lists very, very interesting 15 open problems in parameterized complexity, in the combination of parameterized complexity and machine scheduling. Okay, so this is the first group. The second group, it was funny to me to see that there isn't any woman in our team, and we need to to work on this. So I think that the team started when Danny gave a job talk in my department. He's a bit younger than me, but as usual, much more talent. And I heard this talk about parameterized complexity, and suddenly I had a boom in my mind saying, okay, this is the guy I want to work with, and we can find good questions. And then Mike came to the team. We have a nice grant together on this set of problems and several papers and very smart people. We collect smart people like Mike, like Jiao, Nimrod Talmon, which is a young scientist. And we had two PhD students, Liron Yedid-Sion and Shlomo Kerry. Liron Yedid-Sion was a faculty member in the Technion. Now he works in Amazon. And George this is the hardest. George Manusakis, which was our postdoc. And this is a set of papers that we have. The first one even succeeded to gain a prize for being the best paper in Omega for the year 2019. But we have some additional papers in EJOR, Annals of OR, Algorithmic, Journal of Scheduling, and we have some more under review now. And here are several more papers of other people. It's a partial list. So it's a growing area with a huge number of open problems, and it provides a new field for analysis. That's just a bit history and about the people who work on the field. And I want to move to present some results. I have collected results from 3 out of the second group problems. And the first problems, by the way, the total tardiness problem that I talk about at the early beginning of this talk, it is still open. Unknown whether this problem is FPT with respect to the number of due dates, number difference of due dates, or number of different processing time. I tried to work on this, found it very hard to classify. So this is an important question. But we work on another classical problem, which is the single machine problem, weighted number of tardy jobs. And this paper was published only recently in Annals of OR. Just to formally define the problem, we have n jobs. Each one have processing time, due date, and a weight for being tardy. It's a penalty for being tardy, independent of the tardiness duration. i.e., if a job completed after the due date, it is penalized by WJ, independent of the tardiness duration. Okay, so its solution is like all the single machine problems. It's simply defined by a job permutation and job processing permutation on the single machine. And the objective is to find such a permutation that minimizes the total weighted number of tardy jobs. Okay, so we believe that this is a very important problem and a basic problem, both in the field of scheduling and algorithmic design, combinatorial optimization. It is one out of the problem that appears in the seminal work by Karp in '72 about reducibility between combinatorial problems. That's how one of the things that makes us think that this is an important problem. It is one of 3 problems that Sunny chose to demonstrate the concept of an FPTAS, which is counted as the best, theoretically counted as the best possible approximation algorithm. And the problem is an extension of the well-known 0-1 knapsack problem. I heard someone saying that usually they call it a triangular knapsack problem. I can imagine why, but I couldn't find anything on the web about this name. Okay, so this is a very important problem. Obviously, it's a basic in every book. You have it as one of the problems that takes a lot of attention. And the problem is, as we say, NP-hard, even if all due dates are the same. So it already tells us that if we take the number of different due dates in the instance as a parameter, it rules out the existence of an XP algorithm with respect to this parameter. We say usually that if a problem is NP-hard already for a constant value of the parameter, we say that it is para-NP-hard with respect to the parameter. So this problem will be para-NP-hard with respect to the number of different due dates in the instance. And this is the strongest evidence for its hardness. Parameterized hardness. Okay, so it is hard even if we have a single due date. It is solvable in pseudo-polynomial time. Those are classical results. But it's solvable in order n log n time when either we have equal weights or equal processing time. So it gives us some hope that it will be tractable with respect to parameters that counts on the number of different weights in the instance or the number of different processing time in the instance. Okay, so that's the parameters that we took in our work. The number of different due dates, already we said it will be hard. It follows from CARP result, but we are interested also in combining parameters together, so it may be easy if we will combine it with another parameter. So we took the number of different due dates in the instance, number of different processing times, and number of different weights in the instance as parameter, and those are very natural. We do believe that many real-life applications will have those parameters bounded. The value of the parameters will be bounded with respect to those parameters. Okay, we already talked about it. Okay, so this is the result we obtained in our paper. So the first result, the hardness result, follow from CARP's paper. The XP algorithm with respect to VW and VP. We design XP algorithms, which are basically extensions of the classical Morse algorithm to solve the unit weight case of the problem. So this is an extension of this algorithm, which again, it's a classical algorithm. And then we said, okay, if the problem is hard with respect to VD, maybe if we will combine it with another parameters, we will have both a small number of different due dates in the instance and small number of different processing time in the instance. Maybe it will make the problem easier. And we were able to design an FPT algorithm for each of the cases where we combine 2 out of the 3 parameters together. Okay, and these results have been obtained in a similar but not identical fashion by just simply representing the problem as a mixed integer linear programming formulation, okay, or providing a mixed integer linear programming formulation to each of the problems with only O to the order of k integer variables, where the k is the parameter itself, okay? And then the result immediately follow from classical results of Lawler from '83, that a mixed integer linear programming problem is solved in FPT time with respect to the number of integer variables. Okay, this is a very well-known result. Okay, but still we have open question here as well. Okay, the paper already have been published, and those are the two problems that, or questions that remains unsolved. Whether we can provide better algorithms than the XP algorithms with respect to VW and VP. Can we design an FPT algorithm, or alternatively, can we provide a W hardness result for those problems? This is still, for those parameters, this is still open. Okay. So now what I will show is just, I have two algorithms, one XP and the other one FPT, but I will present only the FPT, I believe, because I will not have time for the XP algorithm. So I will present the way we present an FPT algorithm with respect to the combined parameter VP and VW. So it means that we have only a bounded amount of different processing time and different weights in the instance, but we may have order n different number of due dates in the instance. So a sketch of what we did. The idea was like that. We formulate the problem as an ILP, integer linear programming, with, I will say too many, order to the k plus n integer variables, where k is the parameter, which is at most the multiplication of the two parameters, because okay, this is the maximal number of different combination of processing time and weights in the instance. It's too many because in order to apply Lenstra algorithm and have it runs in FPT time, we need order k integer variables. And here we have order k plus n. So as the instance grows, so the number of integer variables. So what we did, we relaxed this MILP formulation, relax the order n integer variables, and provide an alternative relaxed formulation f prime that has only order k integer variables. And then this formulation we can solve in FPT time using Lenstra algorithm. But how we can produce out of it the optimal solution for the original problem, which is with non-relaxed variable. So if the optimal solution for f prime, which include continuous, it's a relaxation variable, is an integer solution, then we are done. We are lucky and we are done. Otherwise, we provide a polynomial time, a simple polynomial time rounding procedure to obtain an alternative optimal integer solution for f prime, which is also optimal for f. So it means that f prime, we actually were able to prove that f prime has an optimal integer solution. But if we couldn't, if the solving the continuous version of the problem, where we relax some integer variables, produce a non-integer solution, we can round it. We can round it and provide an alternative optimal solution, which include only integer variables. Okay. Usually, I used to teach via Zoom BSc or student classes, and usually I unmute the students. So you're not student, you're so people will be able to ask questions, but I do hope that some of you with me up to now. So I want to give more details of how it is done. So in order to produce the F formulation, which include n plus k integer variables, we begin by partitioning, taking the instance of the n jobs and partitioning it to k different classes or sets of jobs, where in each set, all jobs share the same processing time and the same weight. Although index list, it's not the index PI, it's not, PI, it's the processing time of job I, but here I re-denote it as the processing time of all jobs in set SI. So all jobs with being the same set has the same processing time and weight. And we have only parameterized number of such sets. Let Ni be the cardinality of Si, the number of jobs in set Si all share the same processing time and weight. The following lemma, which is classical, will be used to formulate F. There exists an optimal solution for this problem where the set of non-tardy jobs are scheduled first in an EDD order and the set of tardy jobs is scheduled later. Arbitrary. Moreover, let VD be the set of different due dates in the instance, okay? And we reorder the due dates such that D1 is the earliest due date, D2 is the second earliest due date, and so on. Note that VD can be up to the order of N. It's not the parameter. The parameter is P and W. They are the only one who bounded. This one is not bounded. As the instances increase, you may have, why I don't put N here, because there might be few due dates still that have the same value. So we have VD different due dates and I order them increasingly, okay? Let delta ij be the number of jobs in Si having a due date of Tj. So this is a parameter, have the sets, each set has the same value, all jobs have the same value of processing time and weight. And inside set Si, we have delta ij jobs, which share the same due date Dj, okay? The decision variable will be yi, which is an integer variable representing the number of tardy jobs in set Si. Xij, there are only order k variable, yi variable, because there is a one variable for each of the sets. There are more than that, order n variables, xij variables, where xij is also an integer variable representing the number of early jobs, not late. Yi represent the number of tardy jobs in set Si. Xij represent the number of early jobs in set Si with a due date Dj. Okay, those are the variables. As all the jobs in set I share the same tardy penalty Wi, this function represents the number of tardy jobs. Okay. The first set of constraints, just make sure that the number of early jobs plus the number of tardy jobs in each of the sets will be the number of jobs in the set. So this sums the number of early jobs of each type in set Si, where type of a job is defined by its due date. Okay, this is the number of tardy jobs in set Si, and this is the number of jobs in Si. The second set of constraints include constraint that each of the early jobs will indeed be able to be early, finish before the deadline, and that the number of early jobs in each set, from each type in each set, will not be larger than those number of jobs in the set. Okay, so this is the formulation. It has k to the power of k multiplied by VD variables, xij variable, which is order n, and it has k variable Wi, which is too much to apply. Let's try and solve it in FPT time. So we relax the formulation by relaxing the xij variable and let them to be any continuous non-negative value. So f prime is obviously solvable in FPT time by using Lenstra algorithm, and let x star, y star be the optimal solution for the relaxed version of the problem, and let xi star be the total number of jobs that are the total xij star values in relation to set si. Okay, note that the xij variables can be continuous. Okay, however, even in the relaxed version of the problem, the xi star variables have to be integer. Why is that? Because this constraint has to be satisfied. This one. Yi is an integer and I is an integer, obviously, this sigma is integer as well. Although each one of the variables may be continuous. Okay? So if S star, which include X star and Y star, is an integer solution, we are done. This is an optimal solution to the original version of the problem. Otherwise, we use a rounding procedure to round the xij variables to an integer solution with the same objective value, which will be optimal to f prime and therefore also to f. How we do this? We use this simple lemma, which we prove, that if xi is an optimal number of early jobs in Si, then there exists an optimal solution in which the xi jobs with the latest due date in Si are early. Because all the jobs in this set share the same weight and the same processing time. The only thing that differs between them, the only parameter is due date. You can always switch between early due date to a later due date and still the jobs will be early. If you have okay, so if you choose a subset of jobs from Si to be early, they have to be, or there exists an optimal solution where these Xi jobs are the last jobs with the largest due date. So we use a rounding procedure that simply selects the Xi star last jobs in each set. That's what is done here. Okay, and that's it. I will not present the XP algorithm because it will take at least 20 minutes. It's a bit more complicated. It's built up on an XP algorithm. I want to present some more results in the time that remains for two other problems. The other problems that we dealt with in another paper, it's a flow shop scheduling problem where the objective is to maximize the weighted number of on-time jobs, i.e. the weighted number of jobs completed exactly at the due date. It's, let's say, more a niche problem, but the analysis is, I found it more interesting, the way we analyze the problem, although I will not get into the algorithms. But let's define first the problems. We have a flow shop scheduling problem with a machine and jobs, and each job has a processing time, Pij, on each one of the machines. It says it's on due date, and a weight, which is again a profit for being completed exactly at its due date. So if you don't complete it at the due date, just push it to the end of the schedule so it will not interfere. This is a non-regular scheduling criterion. And the objective is to find the solution, okay, a schedule which may have idle times, at least on the second machine or the last machine, okay, which maximizes the weighted number of just-in-time jobs. The problem is known to be strongly NP-hard on free machine. It knows to be ordinary NP-hard on two machines, although Guohua, which is here, has a polynomial time solution for single machine case, very famous paper, well cited. And there is order n to the third time algorithm for the unit weight case on two machines. Okay, what we try to do is to analyze the parameterized complexity of this problem with respect to the number of different due dates in the instance. The set of results we obtain is listed here in this table. We were able to prove that the problem is W1 hard, okay, with respect to the number of different due dates, already for two machines, so for three machines it's 12. This result holds even if all processing time on the second machines are of unit length, okay? But we were able to design an XP algorithm for this problem, even for three machines. When we move to combination of parameters, VD and VW, number of different due dates and weights in the instance, it's FPT for two machines, but it's W1 hard for three machines, even if all processing time on the third machines are of unit length. Okay, here it's on the third machine, not the second. And again, for a different parameter, set of two parameters, the method we use, the W1 hardest result in this paper, which are one for the two machine, which applies also for the three machine case, two and third, all have been obtained by a parameterized reduction from the K-sum problem. Okay, the XP and the FPT algorithms, I cannot say anything smart, and rather than they are specially designed algorithms, which to present them will take much more time than I can take here. And if I have 5 more minutes, I will present just the result for another problem, and then we will finish. Okay, just clear. So the third problem is the Omega paper. As I said, it has been selected to being the best paper in Omega for 2019. It's a set of two agent scheduling problems where the parameter it means that we have a single machine here, two subsets of jobs, each subset belongs to a different agent. We have n jobs for agent one and k job, where k is the parameter for the second agent. So we look at instances that we have a large number of jobs from agent one and only few for agent two. Okay? So the input includes the processing time for each job, a bound on the objective value of each subset of jobs that belong to each of the agents, and relevant, depending on the objective function, we have due date and a weight for each job. A given schedule of all the jobs, we measure the quality of a solution by two criteria, one for each agent, and we care about three, or we took into account three different objective functions, which are commonly used in the literature: weighted completion time, weighted number of study jobs, and weighted number of just-in-time jobs. And therefore, we have 9 different combination of problems. Okay, I think. Okay, each combination of problem differs by the objective function of the second agent and the third agent. And remember that the parameter is the number of jobs belongs to the second agent. By the way, all those problems from classical complexity point of view are NP hard. We took such problems, okay, for any combination, and we found many results. So we were able to solve almost all combination and provide. There is one open question here and one open question here, and that's it. I think I have to say thank you for a lot of people for my way in the academic world, including Mike, which helped a lot, including Gur Moshayov that I learned from a lot, including Danny Hermelin that brought me into the subject of being excellent partner and excellent friend, and a lot of people that I work with. But I think that without, insulting anyone else, I have to say thank you to Moshe Kaspi, my PhD advisor, and to George Steiner, my excellent postdoc advisor, which taught me almost everything that I know. I could learn some by myself, but I couldn't do that without him. Thank you very much for all of you.
Okay, thank you, Dvir. So now I allowed all participants to unmute themselves. So either you can ask questions in the chat, or you can ask in person, which is maybe a little bit better. So the floor is yours. So please ask whatever you want.
Some persons have raised their hands, but they have to unmute themselves. Huh?
You have to yourself unmute yourself. Okay, for example.
Okay. Yeah. Hello. I don't know if you're speaking about me, but I raised my hand. So thank you for this nice presentation. I'll start with a few comments and questions. This field is very interesting, and so thank you for showing us such a big picture of the non-residents. However, I have one comment. I mean, you didn't mention anything about exponential time algorithms for scheduling problems, and you can see these algorithms like parameterized ones where the parameter is the number of jobs. And so what you try to do is to get lower or low upper bounds on the worst case time complexity. Just to give an example, for the single machine problem with a weighted number of target jobs, we know that the problem can be solved in the worst case in 2 to the power of n divided by 2. And so, to my opinion, it's important to make links between these kind of algorithms for which we have, we already know some things for scheduling problems, and parameterized algorithms. If I take your parameterized algorithms, the one you presented, then somehow it becomes interesting to do a parameterized algorithm if the parameter, if the algorithm you have at the end has a lower worst case complexity than what you can have if you take as a parameter the number of jobs. And so you have links to make, like when the products of the different number of processing times of weights is lower to, I don't know, just to give an example, n divided by 2, then it becomes more interesting to apply such parameterized algorithms. You see, for me, the links with exponential algorithms is very important to see where it is and when it is interesting to do a parameterized algorithm. I don't know if I'm clear.
I haven't heard you. Some of the words were, I didn't hear everything clear, but what is exactly the question? The question is, should we, or why didn't I present this relation for exponential time algorithm? Or what happens if the number of jobs is the parameter and it is bounded?
No, just to say it differently, and sorry if you didn't hear everything, but I think that somehow, just to say it quickly, the worst parameter that you can have somehow is the number of jobs. And what we try to do in parameterized complexity is to take a parameter that can be lower than the number of jobs. Yeah. You want to get a worst case time complexity, which is expressed in terms of this parameter. Yeah. So what I noticed is that it is for me important when you do parameterized algorithms to say, okay, for this problem, and take the single machine problem you dealt with, for this problem, we can solve it in 2 to the power of n divided by 2. This is something we know. So when is it interesting to do parameterized algorithms? Because your parameter, for example, is the number of distinct processing times times the number of distinct weights. And so sometimes it's more interesting to consider n as the parameter, and in some situations it's more interesting to consider the parameter. So it's important to to show both of the literature, to say when it's interesting to do parametrized. You understand?
By the way, I know this algorithm to do the power of n divided by 2. I think it's yours. And Delacroix, yeah, if I clearly remember. I didn't list all the results, obviously. There are many results, although yours is very important. And you are clearly right. There was, so if I want to bound, if I bound the number of jobs, I bound all the parameters at the same time. And yeah, this gives also, and to give a complete picture, but the problem I should have listed out, I think. If I do hope I
okay, no, just to say that for me, it's also a way to justify the interest of parameterized algorithm. To say,
can I say something, please, to answer this? Just a very broad thing. Every problem in NP has a exponential time algorithm, but not every problem. So the fact that you can solve a NP hard problem, be it a scheduling problem or any problem, actually, in exponential time, really, in the literal sense, doesn't tell you anything about whether it's FPT or not. So the fact that you can solve problems in exponential time is, you know, it's somewhat orthogonal. Although you can frame exponential time algorithms in the framework of parameterized complexity, whether or not you can solve, if you are interested in a parameterized complexity, whether or not the problem is solvable in exponential time is irrelevant, because it usually is when you're working with NP hard problems. Yeah, I'm not sure that's exactly what your question is, but I thought it's an important remark.
Yeah, I think it's exponential time algorithms. The point in that this literature is to get smallest worst case time bound, okay, as small as possible, and then it becomes interesting to say, when I switch to a parameter, can I do better with these parameters?
You always can. That's the point. You always can, according to some certain parameters. That's the point. If the parameters are sufficiently, take the number of due dates. If the number of due dates is sufficiently small, you can always get an improved.
The main difference is that here it tries to reduce the exponent. He measured the complexity only in terms of the number of jobs, the size of the instance, and he wants to push down as much as possible the exponent part. We do something which is, you know, when Danny says it's not relevant from classifying the problems in terms of parameterized complexity. It's clearly very relevant to pushing down the times required to solve general instances. We look on restricted instances, and obviously they will not apply for any instance. Your one will apply for all instances, but still it's exponential. So it's exponential, and there is a huge, you know, you published the paper in a prestige journal. So there is a huge interest to push down the complexity of exponential algorithm, because you can guarantee an optimal solution for any instance in an increasing number of jobs. Not for any instance size, but obviously you increase the size of the instance we can solve for any arbitrary instance. We look on restricted instances where some of the parameters are restricted. Obviously, there is also the connection that if n is bounded, as all parameters relate to n, this is the connection that you try to, as all parameters are related to the number of jobs. If you restrict the number of jobs, you immediately restrict the instance. So yeah, this is, you know, we can look at this view as well, which is nice. I haven't thought about it.
Let's move on, right?
Yeah, because Claire Hannon has her hands raised already for the last 10 minutes, but she has to unmute herself if she wants to ask a question.
Hello.
Hello.
So just to say, there are women working actually on parameterized complexity in France, at least. But I have,
we will be happy if they will join us.
Yeah. I have a question about release times. In your first problem, you consider the weighted number of target jobs in a setting where you just have deadlines. And did you study something when there are also release times in your settings?
No,
No?
I did not. No.
Okay.
Mike, it's related to an email that you sent me. If you want to have a look on such problems.
Okay, anybody else has a question? Alessandro, go ahead.
Hello. So first of all, thank you very much, Dvir, for this talk, which was very, very informative about this world, which, I mean, I do not know that well. So I have a very general question, and I don't know if even the question makes sense or not. It seems to me that, in fact, there is a class of problems which has been studied perhaps before fixed parameter complexity was even, at least in the era of scheduling, before FPT was starting being addressed. And it's the class of high multiplicity problems. High multiplicity can be seen as a very special case in which not only you have a limited number of processing times, weights, and due dates, but these components are all you simply have a limited number of different types of jobs, which is a very special. So I was curious to know whether you are aware of any kind of general result relating high multiplicity problems to, let's say, fixed parameter complexity, because intuitively I would say that if a problem is FPT, I don't know, there are more chances that its high multiplicity version is also easy to be solved. But on the other hand, this involves very subtle complexity issues, because then in a high multiplicity problem, even the size of the input is very compact. So I don't know whether there are any general types of results relating these two types of issues.
This is very, very interesting comment, and we have to take a look at that. I am familiar with this notation and see it in several papers. There is a problem. I remember there is a problem also, theoretic problem, with the instance size being also compact. It's not a function of n even. So sometimes something that looks like polynomial in the number of jobs is not polynomial at all. This is one issue that rises in high multiplicity problems.
Yeah, exactly.
But thank you very much for this comment. It's very interesting. I will have to. Yeah, there are obviously some results from the literature that leads to result in parameterized complexity. When you view it in the world of parameterized complexity, you can use classical result that did not really use the term parameterized complexity, but just present algorithms. So I know several XP algorithms which did not use this term XP algorithm, but did not prove. They present, let's say, took an exponential or NPR problem and say, okay, if we have number of different due dates, we can provide the n to the power of number of due dates. If I clearly remember, George is with us, Steiner. He has some paper, I think, on the weighted tardiness problem where there is an XP algorithm effect.
Okay. Thank you. Dusan Knop wants to ask something. You have to unmute yourself.
Thanks, Alessandro, just for the comment.
Thank you for the talk.
Take a deeper look.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I hope I'm audible. So I have a comment to this. Actually, in the paper I have shared with you in the chat, the problem of the paper is that it does not have scheduling in the title, but it contains a lot about scheduling. I believe it answers your question about tardiness, and it actually goes towards this high multiplicity scheduling. And something like that we also investigate with Martin Kotecki again in a paper about kernelization, which is again a very interesting part of FPT.
So you say that the total tardiness on a single machine was, you analyze this problem in this paper?
Yes, we analyze it, and I believe that it is FPT with respect to maximum processing time.
Oh, maximum processing time.
Maximum processing time, yes.
The total tardiness on a single machine. But
Yes.
the number
Weighted
of
tardiness.
different... Sorry?
Even weighted tardiness, if the number of different due dates and release dates is also a parameter.
Okay, but number of different, okay, this is good, but the maximal processing time is not exactly the number of different processing time. It's, I think, more general, my question, but
yeah,
still,
number of different processing times, it's much different, yes.
Yeah, it's much, it's more general, so
yeah.
Sorry for not looking that
Christian,
deep.
you sure it's not make span? I'm looking at the paper as we talk.
Yeah, because Pmax, we have the pseudo polynomial time algorithm for total tardiness on a single machine, which is a function of sigma processing time, which can also n to the 4 Pmax or n to the 4 or n to the 5 Pmax, I think. This is.
But there is a lot of work by Dushan which answers Alexandro's work question. In the sense that they do have this, right? All of this n-fold solves, it's a kind of a long discussion, but maybe you can send a link to the n-fold paper, and that already solves, what's it, make span, multiple machine make span, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll look, thank you for the paper, we will look at it.
Okay, thank you. There is another question by Mr. Steiner.
Hey, George.
Yes, I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, we do.
I'm not very good with using Zoom, so I don't know what I'm doing actually. But
you're excellent.
Thanks very much for a very nice talk and
Thank you,
your
George.
acknowledgements. I just wanted to comment on this last issue about using the maximum processing time as a parameter. But essentially, this would give rise to what we consider pseudo-polynomial parametrized algorithms. And I don't know how many results are there
Huge amount.
in this domain. For the weighted tardiness problem, there are algorithms which are pseudo-polynomial and XP in the number of different due dates.
Yeah, that's what I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great to see you, George.
Yeah, good to see you.
Okay, so any other question? We see Stanislav, go ahead.
You have to unmute yourself.
Yes. Thank you. Hi, Dvir.
Hey.
My question is easy to predict. And I asked you some time ago whether you know results concerning parameterized complexity for scheduling problems with variable processing times. And maybe situation was changed from the time we discussed. No?
It did not.
No. So no one so far was interested in variable job processing times.
I believe that as George said, may be a large set of results in the literature that you can wrap up in the language of parameterized complexity, mainly with respect to the maximal processing time. I think parameter, this will raise up for a lot of brings, because a pseudo-polynomial time algorithm can be viewed as a special case usually of an FPT algorithm. So but you know, we are talking a lot, and we need to walk as well together, not just to talk together. And this and then it might happen.
I think that the most attractive case would be the case of position dependent, because in this case, important is the position of a job in schedule. In other cases where we have job processing times defined by functions, only the value of function we have to control. So I would agree with you that some results could be obtained expressing known results in another language, the language of the form of processing times of a given type. But the position dependent case seems to me quite different. Okay, thanks for interesting lecture.
Thank you for attending. Thank you very much.
So was it the last question? Does anybody else have a question?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, there are two questions from the people watching us on YouTube, so I can read them to you. One is
go ahead, Willem.
Okay, one is by Nirai Koshik, if I read it correctly, I hope so. And the question is this method also helpful for real problem like rework and variable processing time?
So it's related to the question that Stanislav just asked. Yeah?
I think this was from before, so I didn't get a chance to ask it at the time it was asked. But I think it relates generally to like the FPT analysis, but I don't know what a rework or variable processing time exactly means. So I'm only relaying the questions from YouTube.
Variable processing time, it's a set of problems that I am familiar with. It means that processing time itself may depend on, let's say, the position of the job in the sequence or at the starting time, or maybe even dependent on additional resources that you can assign to the jobs. And I think that every, at least theoretical and deterministic problem, the scheduling problem, is relevant. People may say it's theoretically, but I will disagree, because we always talk about hard problems and algorithms that try to solve real-life problems, and you look on heuristic algorithm, but sometimes you don't need heuristic algorithm, because in real life, some of the parameters, usually the NP-hardness proofs are built up on the parameter being arbitrary in the sizes. So they take the partition, they take arbitrary number of numbers and try to partition them. But sometimes real life are not like that, and you can exactly solve in reasonable NP-hard problems.
Okay, thank you.
Just taking advantage of real life situations. That's the issue, where my factory produces only 5 different items or 10 different items. So no need to discuss instances where the number of different processing time is arbitrary. So this is real life, I believe.
Okay, Willem, and the second question?
Yes, and the second question is by Zhangyu Guo, and it is: any FPT algorithm for unit size job precedence constraint mainspan scheduling parameterized by the machine numbers?
At least Maybe, I don't know. I don't know to answer this question. Maybe, maybe. People who know me
you mentioned
knows.
precedences, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it is more tardy. I think that the second papers from 2003 discuss tardy jobs with unit processing time and precedence constraints. So it includes one FPT result and the width of the graph, if I believe,
Yes. Yep.
yeah, is the parameter. So then you have an FPT algorithm. But this is for number of tardy jobs, if I clearly remember, and not make span. But that's what I said. I think that this area can provide a new field of many new questions, theoretical questions that can be looked at. So
Okay, we have another question by Mr. Steiner, or?
Yeah, just a comment that when you talk about precedence constraint scheduling, then dynamic programming would give you an FPT type solution for pretty well any kind of regular objective function where the parameter is the width of the precedence constraint, which is the maximum number of incomparable jobs. So if that is bounded, then you have an FPT solution by dynamic programming.
Okay.
everything that Steiner, George says, I know that it's correct, but now I need to understand why. Yeah. I think they take advantage of it's using a DP, I believe, the dynamic programming on the precedence constraint graph. Yeah.
Okay, guys, thank you for a nice discussion, but everything has to end one day, so life is finite. So thank you for attending the seminar, and hope to
Zdenek, you may want to say about in 2 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. In 2 weeks, we will have a speaker from China, right? But let me find
the lady from China.
Lady, yeah, even better. So Yingdong Shen, and she will speak about public transit planning and scheduling based on AVL data in China. Okay, so hope to meet you at the same hour in 2 weeks. Okay, thank you and bye.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
See you. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.